Pourquoi êtes-vous venu? Vous avez changé d'avis?
Non.
Yes, ladies and gents, you're back in the Media Funhouse. Hi, I'm Ed, your host. This is the Media Funhouse, and we are the cable access show that's proud to bring you everything from high art to low trash and back again. We say that week in and week out, and tonight we have a very special show for you, a very ambitious show once more. You can see from the pictures adorning our beloved set and the little opening clip we use that we are paying tribute tonight to a performer that I have been a big fan of for some years now. In fact, a much delayed deceased artiste tribute for Ms. Jean Seberg. Yes, indeed. We have discussed her before on the program when talking about the video essay by local filmmaker Mark Rappaport called From the Journals of Jean Seberg. And in fact, it was Mr. Rappaport himself who called to my attention the fact that November 13th, Friday, November 13th, 1998, will be the 60th anniversary of Ms. Seberg's birth. So, thanks to Mr. Rappaport, we have some very rare European film co-productions to show scenes from this evening. We're going to be paying tribute to Ms. Seberg's work and her life. We will come back in just a few seconds with a little biographical sketch of the subject of tonight's program, one of my faves, Jean Seberg. Like most people, I first saw Ms. Seberg in Jean-Luc Godard's classic 1959 film Breathless. In the early 1980s, the Museum of Modern Art did a video installation based on the COINTELPRO part of Ms. Seberg's life. We talked about that on a previous program. We'll explain it again in just a few seconds. And they screened some of her earlier and later films. We should note that being a fan of Ms. Seberg's, one encounters some wonderful films and some big disappointments. Out of the 36 films she made, I'd say about at least two-thirds are incredibly bad films, or unfortunately her performance is not quite up to snuff. There were different periods in her career. We will note that Ms. Seberg was born November 13th in Marshalltown, Iowa, in the heartland of America. In fact, we're going to be showing some clips tonight, as we said, courtesy of Mr. Rappaport, some really rare films that have not played on American TV. Her life is documented in the very fine book Played Out by David Richards, a very sad and depressing book. We should note that it would make quite some fodder for a fiction feature film. There have only been 2 films made about Miss Seberg's life. Mark Rappaport's video essay, as we said, from the Journals of Jean Seberg, and a German documentary which kind of goes a little far afield and talks about some murder theories instead of the suicide that we normally believe Miss Seberg suffered. We will talk about her film career, however. The first major setback she encountered was the first major victory. In fact, she had a lot of setbacks in her life, a lot of tragedies. The first thing that happened was she won a talent competition while she was still in high school, and she appeared in Otto Preminger's big-budget production of George Bernard Shaw's St. Joan, a very boring film, we have to admit. And Miss Seberg is a very interesting visual presence, but she didn't have the acting skills, and in fact the critics were scathing in their reviews, and they in fact told her, "Little girl, go back home." Some of the reviews were actually personally directed at this young woman. Throughout the next few years, of course, she made a big splash in Breathless, which was a milestone in the history of film, and she made a series of films in France that were just kind of trade-ins on her bitch, kind of like foreign American bitch girl character from Breathless. But I would say her finest film work was done in the 1965 film Lilith. We will note that she later went on to play kind of icy blondes. They never really knew what to do with her in Hollywood. She played icy blondes in a number of films, and also victims. Yes, indeed, in something like Macho Callahan, a western she made with David Jansen. She basically was cast in Tippi Hedren-like roles. She had various affairs throughout her life. The most notorious were on the sets of her films. In the late 1960s, she was targeted by the American government because she hung around with the Black Panther Party. In fact, COINTELPRO, a program, a kind of a system of persecution set up by our lovely American government set about to discredit Ms. Seberg in the American press. This even reached the heights of Newsweek magazine, in which it was revealed that she was impregnated. This was done as a blind item, but it was evident who it was. She had been impregnated by a Black Panther. This was not the case. In fact, the baby was miscarried. A lot of this has been documented in Mr. Richards' book and Mr. Rappaport's film. Unfortunately, these tragedies just kept going throughout the 1970s. She felt paranoid, she felt persecuted, and in fact she was being persecuted. There was a very strong reason for her to feel as if she was being followed. And in fact she also appeared in a series of, as we said, we're showing scenes from some of them, European co-productions. Very poor films, some directed by her husband Romain Gary. We'll be seeing a little bit of that a little bit later on. And, unfortunately, a lot of other films that just kind of, as we say, just passed her by. She actually was able to speak German, and I believe Italian, definitely French, and of course English, so she appeared in a number of mediocre co-productions. And, in fact, as the years went by, her personal life was in a turmoil, and, in fact, because of these emotional problems and even some drug use, she started to look very haggard. Ms. Seberg, in fact, was only 41 years old when she died, and in fact the circumstances around her death are a little curious. There have been speculations of murder, but the saddest details involved are the fact that she was found dead in the back of a car. She had presumably overdosed or was murdered, and in fact was found baked in the sun. She was in a blanket, and the sun had come in through the window of the car. What was found in her hand was a letter to her son, the one son she had, that said, "Be strong." And last of all, we'll note that it was essentially the government, the American government, that did her in, even in Europe, because the feeling of persecution followed her over there, and in her final years she would just sit and watch Lilith with her friends, which is of course a film about an insane asylum inmate. She felt that role was really the only time her soul had been plumbed on film. And unfortunately, Miss Seberg, as we say, overdosed in 1979. What we want to do tonight is show you some scenes from some films that she did. The first film being, we'll give you a little clip from a film where she is quite beautiful, a film from 1961, directed by Philippe de Broca, the man who made King of Hearts and numerous other notable films, including some vehicles for Jean-Paul Belmondo. This item is called L'Amant de 5 Jours, the 5-Day Lover, with Jean-Pierre Cassel. There's some beautiful imagery, and here she was a very silly wig, but in fact, she actually kind of looks, we were noting, a little bit maybe like a Jennifer Tilly, Winona Ryder type. She's radiantly beautiful. These are some beautiful scenes from, and a little silly dancing at the beginning, I believe, if this is the proper clip that we were choosing, from 5-Day Lover by Philippe de Broca. This sucker has now played on American TV, I would guarantee you, in more than 2 decades. Here we go with Philippe de Broca's 5-Day Lover.